as well as magnets are attracted to each other in nature. Negatively and positively charged ions also are attracted and stay together. That connection, that ionic bond, is medium strength, not very strong, but still it can keep ions together. Covalent bonds are the strongest ones. They are formed by sharing of two or more valence shell electrons. What does that mean? That's one atom and it has only one electron. It's atom of hydrogen. That's another atom of hydrogen and it also has only one atom. When those two atoms of hydrogen approach each other, become close enough, both electrons paired and start moving around both atoms, taking turns, around one, around another. They are doing it very, very fast, keeping those two atoms together. That is sharing, that is your covalent bond. So, sharing of electrons in covalent bonds may be equal or unequal depending on what atoms are doing it. Let's say if two identical atoms are doing it, then it would be an equal covalent bond, electrically balanced, because that pair of electrons, or two pairs sometimes, spend the same amount of time moving around both atoms. Covalent bonds also can be unequal, also sharing of electrons. But what happens right here? Look, that is an atom of oxygen. It's large. Those two are atoms of hydrogen. They are much smaller. They are connected together, making a molecule of water. How they are connected? With help of covalent bonds. So two electrons belonging to hydrogen and oxygen molecules unite and start moving around oxygen and hydrogen. Because oxygen atom is so much larger, both electrons spend more time moving around that huge oxygen than around this small hydrogen. As a result, one side of that molecule becomes slightly negative, another end, where hydrogen atoms are sitting, becomes slightly positive. That's what we call a polar molecule. A water molecule is an example of a polar molecule. Finally, the third type of chemical bonds is called hydrogen bonds. Major difference. Hydrogen bonds are formed not between atoms but between molecules. And they are much weaker than all other types of bonds. How hydrogen bonds are formed? Remember, one side of the molecule is negative, another is positive. So when a negative side of one water molecule is attracted to another side of water molecule which is negative, they attract to each other and form a hydrogen bond. Those bonds are relatively weak and easy to break. Next slide, chemical reaction. So when any of those chemical bonds are formed, rearranged, or broken, we call it chemical reaction. Making bonds, breaking them, or rearranging them. And they can be written down as chemical equations. And those chemical equations contain molecular formula for each reactant and product. What is molecular formula? H2O. That's your formula of water. It tells you that H2, there are two atoms of hydrogen, and O, one atom of oxygen in that molecule of water. And also, we need to include amounts of reactants and products. Here are examples. Chemical equations. One atom of hydrogen reacts with another atom of hydrogen and they form a product, hydrogen molecule, H2. Another example. 4 atoms of hydrogen react with 1 atom of carbon, and they form methane gas, which has a chemical formula C8H4. What are patterns of chemical reactions? Well, when 2 or more reactants combine and form a more complex structure, that is synthesis. When it happens inside of the living body, it's called anabolism. When something is breaking, a complex molecule is breaking into simple ones, it's called catabolism. And finally, we have exchange reactions, when 2 substances go through the chemical reaction and turn into completely new substance. So that's your example of synthesis reaction. 2 substances form the third one. That's anabolic reaction. 2 or more amino acids in the living body can be connected into the chain of amino acids, and that is your protein molecule. Now, decomposition reaction or breaking, catabolic reaction. Glycogen, it's a complex chains of glucose branching that we have in our liver, stored for the time when we are hungry. So whenever we are hungry and level of sugar in our blood goes low, glycogen is released from the liver and broken into single glucose molecules. That process of breaking glycogen is called decomposition. Finally, exchange reactions. Okay, if you or when you studied biology or chemistry, depending on what classes you took before, you probably heard about photosynthesis. Plants, any plants that are growing, those trees, grass, whatever, they all need carbon dioxide. They all need water, they all need energy or sunlight, and they can produce glucose, carbs, and water. What about animals, and humans are included? They do the opposite thing, which is called aerobic respiration. So for humans to survive, we need to have that chemical reaction, aerobic respiration, going on in our cells constantly. Our cells constantly need glucose, C6H12O6. We also need oxygen that we inhale, and glucose we receive with food as carbs. So oxygen, and those 2 components, reactants, go through a complex chain of chemical reactions, and then we form carbon dioxide that we don't need, we breathe it out, water that we use for our inner needs, and energy as ATP molecules that we store and use inside of our cells. Please know this reaction of aerobic respiration. So most of chemical reactions can be reversible, they can go both ways, but inside of the living bodies, biological reactions in many cases are not reversible. Why? Because those biological reactions require a lot of energy and the products are removed very soon, so the reaction cannot be reversed. Rate of chemical reactions, or also we call it speed of chemical reaction. It depends on 3 things that you need to know. First of all would be temperature. The higher is temperature, the faster will the reaction go. Next one, particle size is one of the properties of the reactants. The smaller is the particle size, the faster reaction will go. If you put a sugar powder in a glass of water and mix it, it will happen pretty fast. But if you put there a large lump of sugar, it will take it some time to be dissolved in the water. That is your particle size. Finally, concentration of reactant. The more of reactant you have, the higher will be rate of the chemical reaction. What are catalysts? Those are chemicals that increase the rate of chemical reaction, but they do not change themselves. When we have catalysts inside of their human body or any animal body, we call them enzymes. So enzymes are biological catalysts. They speed up any chemical reaction in our body. How they do it? Any chemical reaction to go requires energy, activation energy. When enzymes are used, they reduce amount of that activation energy, and that's how they speed up chemical reaction.